One of my favorite books is called Extreme Cuisine, which presents a collection of the scariest, according to the author, recipes from all over the world. For instance, Wickety grub, Australian maggot stew, Korean live octopus tentacles, octopus that is cooked still alive, and maggot cheese from Sardinia. I'll tell you about that in detail in an upcoming episode. Naturally, I have to taste everything. That is why, having found myself in Norway, I primarily went hunting for the dish which is referred to as a chemical experiment in the book, not as food. The name is rather eerie too, Lutefisk. As far as the cooking method goes, this is indeed one of the most bizarre recipes in the world, as you will soon discover. The second part of this name, fisk, means fish. Everybody knows that fish enjoy cold water. That's why I made my way to Bergen, the second largest city in Norway. This is an important center for the fish industry in the North Sea area. Scandinavians fish a lot. If they didn't supply fish to the rest of the world, they'd have 2.5 kilos of fish per person per day. Believe me, you can find every possible fisk in Bergen. Based on what I read in the Extreme Cuisine book, I concluded that a lutefisk specialist should be a grim, sort of vivisectionist type of person. Despite my expectations, the main lutefisk expert of Bergen turned out to be a lovely lady named Hannah Frosta. Lutefisk.
Lutefisk, very good.
Okay, we'll discover how good it is. To me, it tastes like sodium chloride with a sauce made of chemical elements from Mendeleev's periodic table. I need another piece. You know, I think the name Lutefisk was not incidentally chosen. In Russian, luti means ferocious, and I translate it as ferocious fish. I only recommend it for the brave fish enthusiasts. In fact, lute means alkali. Now I'm finally gonna know what that tastes like. Hannah, can you tell me how a recipe from all this nastiness was created?
Nastiness? What does that mean?
It means something nice and sweet.
Okay, so the basis of the dish is codfish from the north of Norway. It's left to dry for 3 months of timber beams. After that, it's soaked in water for a week and covered in lye.
Alkali? But this is poison.
Don't be scared. Don't be scared. It's all right. After the lye treatment, the fish is soaked in water for another 6 days, and only then it's ready to be cooked. It's a long process.
And you know what? Doesn't taste as good as it looks. Given the effort, they could have come up with something better. Naturally, a question arises. How did alkali get in the kitchen? The first written mention of lutefisk dates back to the 16th century, and even in those sources, it's described as an ancient recipe. Once, a group of Vikings attacked the settlement. After the fire, all reserves of codfish were covered with a thick layer of birch ash, which in fact is alkali. They had an easy choice: learn how to make it edible or starve to death. It's interesting that this recipe emerged not as a culinary fantasy, but as a way to save the fish covered in alkali and not to starve to death. And you can certainly tell that. I also wonder how they decided on the number of days the fish should be soaked for after the alkali treatment. They must have tried it for 1 day, then said, "Okay, let's start again. Soak it for 2 days." Let's try 3. 3 days. Uh-huh. Seems okay. And then? That's how they determined the ideal term. 6 days doesn't result in the death of the person eating it. Alkali softens the fish and gives it a sharp and what seems to me as a kind of chemical fragrance. After all the treatment, the fish is sprinkled with iodine-treated salt, chemicals again, and then baked. Of course, toxic substances remain, but there's very little of them. This recipe gives one an idea of how tough the Vikings were. If the fat codfish remained in the lye just a bit longer, we'd have fishy soap. But the Vikings preferred being well-fed rather than clean. Hannah, can you tell me what people say when they try lutefisk for the first time?
Well, both the tourists and the locals feel the same way about it. They either love it or hate it from the first bite.
So my reaction isn't the most unusual.
Okay.
Well, as Russian writer Zoshenko put it, a human being is not a flea. He adjusts to anything. I think one can develop a liking even for this fish in about 15 years or so. Without a doubt, lutefisk is impressive. But I didn't come to Norway for extreme entertainment, but for, and I may make a mistake here, Kamskjell med Grønnsaker. Don't be afraid. Norway exports fish and seafood all over the world. However, some foods they keep only to themselves, including those very special and local Kamskjell, which easily translates as scallops, but is a challenge to find. Let me explain. We'll have to scuba dive and hunt for them on the seabed. Previously, there were merchants and warehouses here. Today, there are restaurants and souvenir shops. Here there's an authentically preserved building of the Hanseatic League, which was built in 1703, by the way. My, what's going on in the bay? Not since the time of Hansa has there been so many sails here. I was lucky to find myself in Bergen at the time of a big regatta. There are dozens of small and big yachts in the bay, including the Russian bark Cousine. Behind the masts and the laced rigging, you can't even see the sky. Flags are fluttering in the wind. The smoke is rising from the cabins. The air is saturated with joyful excitement. Soon the sails will be raised and the yachts will depart into the open sea. And here is our boat. Of course, it's not a... but it's something. We'll also depart, but in a different direction. We've got our own adventure. Alf Setren looks exactly like the character from the Crocodile Dundee movie. He's a sailor, a diver, and a restaurant owner all in one. Alf agreed to show me the place where the coveted scallops can be found. So Alf, where are we going? First, we'll be sailing along the coast, and then into that bay. Looks a bit far. Shouldn't we go into a shop? I know there's a great shop here, and here, and here. But you wanted the best and freshest scallops in Norway, didn't you? We'll have to get those ourselves. Trust me, this bay holds a treasure. Okay, you've convinced me. Let's get going then. Okay. For those who don't know what scallops are, they are beautiful shells that have a delicacy inside them. Some countries harvest scallops using an industrial fishing method called dredging, but here it's forbidden. Norwegians treat nature with a lot of care, so the only way to taste this local delicacy is to go diving for it. The scallops live at a depth of 10 to 30 meters. They're very smart and hide in the sand on the seabed. Here it is, here. Can't you see? I can't see either. Yeah, one needs a sharp eye and experience to find them. And I don't have neither. Okay, I'll be the carrier then. Besides scallops, we found crabs and sea urchins as well. They too are a delicacy. That's why they also end up in our net. On one hand, it's kind of strange that a man of means, our restaurant owner, goes hunting for the food by himself. But Alf says that first of all, a guarantee of freshness attracts his customers. Secondly, prices in Norway are very high, and he can save some money this way. And thirdly, he just loves diving. In about 40 minutes, we filled the net full with unfortunate sea dwellers. And what's more, I began to run out of oxygen, so we had to go up. Looks like we have enough for dinner tonight. Is that enough for dinner?
Yeah, plenty.
There's enough for everyone. It was a very good dive, very productive.
No, that's...
And I was attacked by a crab. I must say, underwater hunting is tiresome.
There's a big crab.
Here's your favorite. We'll see you in the kitchen, my friend. Alf turned out to be quite a character. He built his restaurant on a little island which is only accessible by sea. It takes 20 minutes to arrive here by boat from Bergen. When he started his business, everyone thought he'd be a failure. However, the restaurant flourishes. Could it be because there's nowhere to run away without paying the bill? Back in the water. If you open this beautiful shell, you'll find a big, bright mussel, which is the edible part of the scallop. It is a fat-free food, pure protein, very healthy. It helps decrease the level of bad cholesterol and is considered to be the perfect aphrodisiac. Today, our scallops will be accompanied by vegetables. They are selected and cooked in such a way that the garnish does not interfere with the taste of the star attraction. So, today, supporting the scallops are a mushy pea, broccoli, and a simple yet very tasty cream sauce. Boil the broccoli and 100 grams of green peas. Add a pinch of salt to the peas, 80 grams of butter, and blend it. The mushy peas are now ready. Then, we fry the scallops in a little butter until a crispy crust appears. Whisk heavy cream, salt, and sugar. This will be our sauce. If you want, you can also add half an onion or a green lettuce leaf to it. Ready to serve. What is the history of this dish? In the olden days, it was the food of the poor. Today, it's a delicacy. It's an authentically Norwegian food going back to the time of the Vikings. The characteristic of the local vegetables is their soft and fresh taste, and nothing interferes with the fragrance of the scallops. It all goes together perfectly. The main idea of the garnish is to stay unnoticed, as a kind of backing vocalist. It has to be heard, yet it should hardly be noticeable. The starring role is played by the scallops. They're absolutely delicious. And if some guy swims over here, will you feed him? Of course. It's happened before. Just have a bite and continue swimming. They are perfect. I don't know what goal nature had in mind when creating these creatures, but to me, this is the apex of the scallop's career, the demonstration of perfection. What can be better than that? The scallops might not agree with me, but to us, it's obvious. And now I'm absolutely prepared to dive back to a depth of 20 meters for a second helping. You know, Alf, I memorized the location of your special scallops. It's right there. What will you do if you one day find me there, scuba diving? No, that's not an option. You know, I have a fishing gun. Well, it was just a question. I wasn't really going to. But I did memorize the coordinates. I decided to have dessert in Stavanger, a city located on the Stavanger Peninsula in the southwest of Norway. They promised to show me the biggest cake in the country there. Part of the route was winding through the famous Norwegian fjords. What can I say? The fjords are beautiful. The views are breathtaking. However, from a culinary point of view, rivers are much better. Fresh river water, in contrast to a fjord, can be used only for watering plants and for feeding animals. It's not good to grow plants or build a farm on the sharp rocks surrounding the fjords. It's not even good as a trade route because there are hardly any places to unload the goods. It's not surprising that the Vikings, when leaving to raid their neighbors, left those fjords hungry and furious. Stavanger welcomed me with a cake which wasn't just big, it was gigantic, 100 meters long and 3,000 portions. It was made for the birthday of a Norwegian TV presenter everyone refers to as Aunt Ingrid. For dozens of years, she's been sharing new recipes with the audience, and they claim she has revived the interest in home cooking in the country. Today, Aunt Ingrid is turning 90. I think this is the biggest success a culinary show presenter could achieve in a lifetime. I get the impression that the citizens of Bergen are romantics, and that's why the bay is full of sailing yachts, while the citizens of Stavanger are food lovers. Their seaside hosts a lot of culinary festivals. The population of Stavanger is 120,000 people. During the festival, it more than doubles, which makes it 250,000. Everyone wants to taste local produce. It's also an unforgettable atmosphere. Sausages being grilled all around, a wide choice of berries peering at you from the baskets, painstakingly cleaned turnips, and of course, there's fish wherever you go. Can you see? He also likes it. Because it's not a usual burger. It's a burger with Lutefisk, the oldest and most traditional Norwegian food. Dried codfish. And what did the Vikings eat when traveling in their rooks? Lutefisk. Today there's a lot of healthy and fresh food, but it hasn't always been this way. Nearby, I discovered a place that preserves the memory of the culinary art of a century ago. On the outside, the building built in the end of the 19th century looks quite ordinary, but inside, it feels like a haunted house. Remnants of the past epoch. Mechanisms of a century of coal and steam came to a halt in this stillness. No fire in the furnaces. Numerous empty cans will never be filled with taste and aroma again. And only the faded photos hold the memory of those who made this place alive. Only some 100 years ago, they cooked food here for millions of people. We are at a big canning plant, which was converted to a museum. Nice. Tell me, how many cans did this plant produce? 350 million cans a year.
Really?
Which means a million cans a day. And what's the production rate these days? I cure some sardines in smoke for my own consumption, but they don't produce cans here anymore. Today, the fashion is for organic fresh food, raw, not salt, just a pure product. But in the 20th century, millions of people consumed canned food. Cans were introduced to the public by Napoleon Bonaparte, who was looking for a simple way to feed his army. The invention of an airtight food preservation technique by Nicolas Appert was a godsend. Tell me, what was this plant like in the heyday? It played a pivotal role in the city. For instance, in 1942, our cans were exported to 59 countries. And what was the production like? First, the fish was soaked in salt water. Then, it was taken to a special place where it was impaled and sent to a smokehouse. One shift produced 6,000 pieces. Then, olive oil was poured over it, and finally, it was seamed by a roll refiner. It was a very high-quality product. Recently, I opened a can made in 1910. First, tested it in the laboratory, and then ate it. It was delicious. It was mainly fish that was canned: mackerel, herring, sprat, and sardines. The times have changed. The fashion for fresh produce made the factory redundant. Each age has its taste. What about those machines? Are they still operable? Yes, almost all of them are. I take care of them. What do you say if we make the last can? That's a great idea. Let's do that. The engines and sheaves started for the last time. The last can of hundreds of millions is ready. Thank you very much. I'll keep it as a memory. I'll open this can of sardines in 100 years' time, and I promise to tell you what it tastes like. This journey made me realize one thing. People whose ancestors traveled the world in their rooks and even discovered America still have sea coursing through their veins. And this means that the favorite food of Norwegians is fish and seafood cooked in a variety of ways, but undeniably delicious. All except the lutefisk, of course.